Our guest on This Is America and the World is the celebrated novelist, screenwriter, and playwright Walter Mosley. Among his many awards are the Edgar Award and the Grand Master Award, both given by the Mystery Writers of America. The popular film of his novel, Devil in a Blue Dress, starred Denzel Washington as Detective Ezie Rawlins. Walter Mosley's latest book, featuring Ezie Rawlins, is Blood Grove. Walter Mosley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm reading two of your books right now, Blood Grove, which is brand new, and Ezie Rawlins Mystery, and Trouble Is What I Do. Thank you for your writing so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'm going to ask you, I was going to ask you about your writing, but I notice over your shoulder a number of paintbrushes and such. You're an artist as well?
Well, I'm not going to go so far as to say I'm an artist, but I do paint. I draw and I paint. I do. And I have been since I was 12.
Uh-huh.
So it's the thing I've done the longest. I like doing it. It's abstract and it's different, but you do something long enough, you begin to get a voice.
Are those on the wall in back of you? Is that your work as well?
Yes. Yeah. The two frame things. Yeah.
Yep. Very tasty. Let's talk a little bit about America, and I'm going to ask you to free associate to that word. If I say America, what comes into your mind?
Hope. Hope. That's the first thing that comes in my mind. Mm-hmm. It's I've been talking a lot lately about optimism. And, optimism in the time of COVID, optimism in the time of Trump, optimism, in the time of, the capitalization of America, meaning to say capitalism pretending as it's democracy, all of that stuff. And still, I think, well, God, there's some good chance that we can have something. Somebody says it's terrible about COVID. And believe me, it is terrible about COVID. But, we have COVID-19. I'm just imagine if we had Ebola-19. We've gone through this period of time and we've learned so much and our science has grown so much. I mean, the idea of having these vaccines in such a short period of time, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. And, it makes me hopeful that, we have answers for the larger problems we're going to be facing ahead.
Mm-hmm. Have you always been optimistic?
I think so. And say it's the idea of the, things going wrong. You can, most people can see how lucky they are. But I think most people actually pay attention to how unlucky they are. Mm-hmm. Well, I only have this and they have that. And, I was talking about race, I always imagine that if somebody came up and asked Langston Hughes, I said, well, how come they hate black people so much here? And he said, it's because they don't know how wonderful it is to be colored. Mm-hmm. That's what I imagine his answer would be, because we do some great things in America. We do jazz, we do sports, we do all kinds of science. I'm pretty optimistic.
Talk about a little bit more about this business of the positive side of the coin of being black in America.
Well, I think that black people in America, number one, we're some of the oldest Americans, right? I mean, we've been here not since the beginning, because Native Americans were here first, and that's a whole history that America tried to wipe out, and was successful to a great degree. And then we were here. We built this country, we built the language, we built the music, we built the religion. We've done these great things. There's a lot of things for us to say. Look how powerful we've been. Look how we've made this country. Even in all political movements since I was born, that's like almost 70 years ago. Almost all political movement has kind of patterned itself in this country after what we've done, how we want to, be free. You look at people, so-called white people. I don't really believe in the existence of white people, but people, they believe it. So I'm white. It's okay, fine. They're white. But now that they've lost the leg up, they're having the same kind of suffering that we have. We now have the answer to say, this is how you deal with this stuff. Not everybody understands it yet, but we do have the answers because we've been living with it for a long time.
Actually, you look at the African American journey over 400 years with African and then African American. They kind of built the country and kind of built democracy, moved democracy along.
Oh, absolutely. They said, we were saying, your idea of democracy is not working. In order to make it right, you have to give everybody the vote. You have people of color a vote, non-property owners a vote, women the vote. We're a big part of that. We're a giant part of that. And, when you look at American culture, especially in music, we built that completely. I'm not, listen, other people are part of it. We get Irish music out of it and English music and, polka and all that stuff. But jazz and blues and gospel, later on now hip hop, has brought all that stuff together. And so, I got to be proud of something that I know we did, Take
a little break. Back on the other side. This is America and the World. Underwriting for This is America and the World is made possible by the Japan-America Society of Washington, D.C., the National Association for Children of Addiction, Faces and Voices of Recovery, the Forerunner Foundation, the Rotendaro Family Trust, the Republic of Uzbekistan, the Sultanate of Oman, the Kingdom of Morocco, and the Embassy Series, Uniting People Through Musical Diplomacy. I want to circle back to this idea that there aren't any white people. How would you identify me?
Well, I don't know. I don't know where you're from, but let's talk about it like this. My mother's Jewish, for instance, okay? And when her relatives, when they came here, they completely identified with me and my father. They said, we were hung, we were burned, we lived in ghettos, we lived in shtetls, we didn't have the right to vote, we didn't have a right to intermarry with people, we were considered a separate race. Mm-hmm. My grandparents' generation thought like that. The next generation was very kindly toward black people. The next generation says, well, we're white people. Now, I know it's not true. And I know there's a lot of so-called white people would say, no, that's not true. We don't like you. We would like to get rid of you along with everybody else. But, so-called white people, they don't have the same country. They don't have the same language. They don't have the same physical features. They don't have the same religion. They're all kinds of different people. If you go to Europe, white might mean something to them, but it's more important. I'm French, I'm Spanish, I'm Portuguese, I'm Sicilian. You go to England or Italy, they got 5 or 6 different races in the country. So, the idea, white people were invented, I think, mainly in the United States. People came here from Europe and they said, we got to get rid of these red people because they own the land, but we want the land. And then we have to do all this work and we can't do it all. So we're going to get these black people and we're going to make them slaves. And so, okay, there's the red people, that's our enemy, and there's the black people who are our slaves. So we need a race. And, as people came here, the Irish weren't considered white when they got here. The Italians weren't considered white when they got here. The Jews definitely weren't considered white when they got here. That was, slowly say, we'll let you join the club. But it's more like a club than a race. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. 2020, 2021, where do you see African Americans fitting in or fitting out?
Well, it's so interesting now. Everything is so open. I think when some basic things is if you happen to see yourself or in some kind of the media some man or woman being slaughtered in the street by the police, then that's a very racial thing. That's something we have to identify with, and we have to come together and we have to fight for it. And luckily, a lot of so-called white people are fighting with us. They say, yeah, listen, that's wrong. It's wrong to kill that person. I know that person's history as well as I know my own, they say. And that's a good thing. And I think that other than that, if you want to be a painter, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a scientist, if you want to, work in business, I think we have the opportunity to do all of that. And it's important not to get caught, as Marx would say, by the dead hand of the past, trying to says, well, we don't have the same equality as everybody else. We do. And we have power. We have the power to vote, which, as you can see in Georgia. So I think that in many ways, we need to see each other as members of this nation, Americans, and when people start getting a little crazy, like they have a little bit lately, we have to get together and say no, we're not going to take that.
Let me quote from your book.
Okay.
And this is easy talking, I think. In America, in the America I loved and hated.
Yeah.
That's the way he identifies himself, in the America that I loved and hated. Is that the character speaking, or is that part of you speaking as well?
Well, I do think that, when you talk about America, not in the moment, but in its whole history, that if you're a Black, if you're, a brown-skinned Hispanic, Asian, even many women, you love it here, because it's your place, your history, your family, and you also hate it because you for a very long time have been kept out. And Easy, I think, is a perfect example of that. Is that I got a lot of problems, he said, but I'm going to live right. I'm going to live right. And I think that there is the possibility, maybe less of a possibility than somebody who's had a certain kind of success. A certain kind of economic background, sometimes an educational background. Somebody might have a better chance. But like my father told me, he said, Walter, if you want to do as well as a white man, because he believed in white man, he said, if you want to do as well as a white man, you come in a half an hour early and you leave a half an hour late. And he said, if you want to do better, you come in an hour early and you leave an hour late. And I said, Dad, that's not fair. And he said, that's right. And that was the end of the conversation. It's like, let's not be,
You write about Black men and the Black man. And you see the Black man as heroes, huh? Help us understand.
Well, listen, I see all kinds of people from all kinds of different, peoples and backgrounds. You see heroes, there are all kinds of Irish and Polish and Russian and Jewish and, Native American and Spanish. And, there are all kinds of heroes, there's, there are Eskimo heroes, It's very rare that Black male heroes have made their way into the culture, into the literature, now into film, into theater. It's very rare. It's always kind of a fight. And I know that you don't even exist in a culture unless you exist in the imagination of that culture. And the imagination still, it primarily is literature. So if you start to read about people, or maybe somebody else has read about it, makes a movie about those people, you say, oh, well, these are really interesting people. And for instance, the movie Hang 'em High, it was about a territory that was mostly people of color. But they said, well, we can't do that. But what we'll do is we're going to tell these Black people's story, and we'll just put Clint Eastwood in it. He knows that. I just want to say, I want to talk about those heroes, because in talking about it, people who don't know anything about it will learn something, and people who know it but don't think anybody else does will feel a sense of pride. And look, I believe in black female heroes too, but there's a lot of female writers who create those heroes. There was Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Terry McMillan, and I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. I mean, so many people, June Jordan,
Do we have a tendency to see all Black folks the same?
I think that it has been a tendency to say there's 2 or 3 different kinds of those kinds of people, when it comes to a race outside the race that's identifying itself as, the race. They do it with Asians, of course. I mean, you can see our history about Asians in literature has been ridiculous. Black people too, you can be the sidekick, you can be the gangster, you can be, step and fetch it. But But in a book I wrote very recently, The Awkward Black Man, I'm writing a whole bunch of nerds. These guys are nerds. They do incredible things, but they're not the expected black male hero. Mm-hmm. But I love writing about those characters, and and I love them. Anybody who writes about them. It's not just I read all literature, but what's important. I thought when I started writing, I still think is to talk about the history of this culture where black males are part of it.
I want to do another free association with you. Yeah. When we say the words inner city, the tendency, I think, for a lot of folks would be to think violence and crime and poverty. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot more going on in the inner city than that. Mm-hmm. Huh? Take us into that world.
Well, when you say inner city, I think it's the only life worth living. It's where our culture is. It's where our museums are. It's where the music is. It's where the clubs are. It's where the politics are. It's where the universities are mostly. This is where things are happening. It might be dangerous at one point and not dangerous at another. I lived in New York starting in the worst time, late 70s, early 80s, until recently. I mean, and still now, because that's still where I'm in LA now, but I'm still living in New York. And it was terrible in the late 70s and in the early 80s. I didn't know. I was in New York. I was having a great time, and I think that a lot of people are afraid. Like, for instance, I worked as a computer programmer at a place, and one of my fellow computer programmers was a guy, he would have called himself a white guy. I always said he was Jewish. Tall guy, good looking guy, weightlifter. I mean, he was strong. I mean, big. You could see the muscles under the clothes, you know what I mean? That's something. And one day he was talking to me, he said, Walter, boy, I almost got in trouble there. I almost got hurt. And I said, why? I said, well, I was walking, the underpass under 42nd Street. I said, yeah. He said, well, I was walking by and these three black guys came my way, and they looked very rough, and they were, talking loud, not to him, but just loud. And I said, well, what happened? He said, well, they walked by. And I said, well, so you weren't in trouble. There was just three guys having a good time talking to each other, and they walked by you. And he said, yeah, but who knows what could have happened? I said, well, I don't know what could have happened, but I do know it did happen. And what did happen was nothing. And it was hard to explain this to him. He thought his life was in jeopardy. A lot of that inner city stuff comes from that. Sometimes, listen, people attack people, people beat people, people kill people. I'm not saying it's not true. Among poor people, there's more crime than in working class, and then middle class, and then upper class. But life is dangerous, yeah. But we need to know how to deal with each other and how to care for each other.
What do you want white folks to know?
I don't see myself as a teacher in that way. I write about Ezekiel Rawlins, right? Ezekiel Rawlins, in one of the books after, a few years after the Watts riots, so he can go into the so-called white neighborhoods. He can drive here and he can drive there. But, in one day, he gets stopped by the police 5 times. 5 different times. They don't like the car he's driving. They don't like it that there's a white woman sitting next to him in the car. They don't like it that he stops in the neighborhood. I'm just writing that. Somebody reads it, if you're reading the book, he's innocent. He hasn't done anything. I mean, he was sitting with the white woman, but, he hasn't done anything wrong. You can take from that what you will. You know what I'm saying? It's I know what I think about it, but I'm just presenting it as life as it's happened, and in doing that, I think that, there can be a dialogue, there can be a way of thinking. There's a lot of unconscious stuff that goes on when you read things like this and see things like this. When I work on, television shows or in movies or writing my books, it's all of a piece. And I'm a little fragment of that, and I'm writing my books, and if this so-called white person reads my book, that's enough for me.
So, Blood Grove, the latest.
Yes.
If people were meeting you for the first time, and they saw us having this conversation on television, and they said, "Well, I've never heard of him before. Oh, but yes, I think I did hear of him. Clinton used to like his books, and that was a big thing." How does an author get new readers? Is it always word of mouth?
It's many things. One, the publisher either is going to get behind the book or not get behind the book, push it out into the world, advertise it, push it into the front of bookstores, make ads on Amazon, whatever. That's one thing. There is if other people have read you, word of mouth, people say, "Oh, have you read? This is really good," and that kind of thing. One thing that's really great. I write all kinds of books, but I also write mysteries. About 24 of my 60 books have been mysteries. And people like reading mysteries, and they don't really care if the mystery reflects their life, their people, their place. They just want to know, they want to hear about the mystery, and they want to see it get settled. And so that if you hold it up to many, many people and say, "Well, it's a mystery," they say, "Oh, okay, I'll give it a chance. It's a mystery. I like mysteries." And I think that's been the most helpful thing to me, genre itself.
I'm just enjoying the book so much. We're going to do. I'm working on a book myself.
Yeah.
All of the interviewees are African American, and my idea is just to ask the questions and get the responses back. And so I'm not advocating. I'm just listening. And this is a reoccurring question that I asked you in the book: is what do you want white folks to know?
I can see lots of black people are going to pick it up and say, "What is this?" And a lot of white people are going to pick it up and say, "Oh, this is for me." So-called white people. And I think that's kind of wonderful.
It's a pleasure to read you, and it's a pleasure to enjoy how you use words, play with words, paint pictures. Just delightful. And I thank you so much for being part of our conversations. The number of programs we're doing and putting different pieces together is to take a look at America right now, especially in this area of race and racism. President Biden's trying to do some new things. And this is a way that we can make a little bit of a contribution. And I thank you so much for being part of it.
And I thank you very much. It's wonderful talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit to you folks about vaccinations and getting a vaccination. I was so fortunate that my downstairs neighbor alerted me that there were spots available for appointments at Howard University's Medical Center. And you should know about Howard University, one of the great universities, certainly in Washington, and historic throughout the United States. So I grabbed the appointment, went over there, informal, friendly, relaxed, organized, people with a smile on their face, actually with a smile on their face. It was just an absolute pleasure. I've heard some nightmare stories about people getting their shots. And the reason I wanted to take a couple of minutes out and talk to you is just to say that the vaccinations they're safe, they're effective, and boy, when you have a shot, even the first shot, it's a great relief, and we just want everybody to get vaccinated as soon as they can possibly get. So if you're a little squeamish or a little hesitancy, and you have some trust in what we do and what I do, take it from me. Over there, on the first dose, it was student Dr. Lauren who gave me the shot. And then on the second dose, it was student Dr. Emmett. And then, and then, you know me, well, let's set that aside. Had the gall to ask Mimi, who is studying nursing over there at Howard, if she would take my picture. Both times, not only did she take the picture, but she sent them to the office. And a couple of them on the screen right now. So I just want to encourage you, safe, healthy, just go for it and do it, okay? Thanks so much. For information about This Is America and the World, visit our website, thisisamerica.net, or our YouTube channel, This Is America TV, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Underwriting for This Is America and the World is made possible by the Japan-America Society of Washington, D.C., the National Association for Children of Addiction, Faces and Voices of Recovery, the Forerunner Foundation, the Rotendaro Family Trust, the Republic of Uzbekistan, the Sultanate of Oman, the Kingdom of Morocco, and the Embassy Series, Uniting People Through Musical Diplomacy.